Pádraig Tobin.
𝐅𝐞𝐚 a 𝐂𝐡𝐢𝐥𝐴 agus míle buíochas de Paul Gogarty as an billa seo a thuairteteach go dtí an dul. And I'd like to welcome and thank the Alliance for Birth Mothers campaigning for justice for all the work that they've done on this issue for the last number of years. One of the most difficult cases that come into my office on a regular basis is when a child is taken from their family or from their parents. Firstly, because the act of forcibly separating a child from a parent is probably one of the most damaging things that a state can do if it's done in the wrong situation. It has an enormous impact on the child and will last with them for the rest of their lives, and it has a harrowing impact on a parent. And in reality, one of the worst nightmares that could ever face any parent is having their child forcibly taken away from them in relation to the state. And, you know, especially I think if you look at what's happening in relation to 𝐓𝐿, it's even heightened because of the fact that we've seen from the show on 𝐅𝐸 Investigates just last week that many children who are in really difficult circumstances that are taken from their parents often find themselves in a situation where they're exposed to rape, sexual exploitation, being groomed by drug gangs for the sale of crack cocaine, and even killed. So the idea, first of all, that your child will be taken from you is a nightmare of epic proportions. But then that it will be taken from you and given to an organisation which itself is mired in controversy because of the disasters befalling so many children is absolutely horrendous. And, you know, I don't know how I would feel if it happened to my own child. I imagine it would be all-consuming in terms of the stress and pressure and anger and frustration that would happen to myself as well. The other aspects of why these cases are so difficult is because it is so difficult to determine what the truth is in these situations. It is absolutely difficult because both parents are so emotionally invested in the situation that is in existence that the reality is, for some parents, they will do anything in relation to making sure that the child isn't taken off them. So I have dealt with so many mothers and some fathers who have been shockingly aggrieved at what's happened to them. And one of the issues that has come through is that their voices in relation to those grievances are not being heard, and that the in-camera rule is stifling their ability to seek help or support. And like, one of the aspects of this is that so many parents would ring me and talk to me and say, I don't know if I can speak to you as my TD. I don't know if I have the right or the ability to even converse with you in relation to what's happening to my child because of that in-camera rule. Some parents have even said that they're afraid to even talk to the Gardaí about their experiences in relation to it because of the in-camera rule. So it's seen nearly as a complete block of communication for an individual who is in probably one of the biggest nightmares that a parent can be in as such. You know, they have taken children from mothers on the back of false information, 𝐓𝐿 have in the past, and that is absolutely factual. They've had to apologise in certain cases. They've had to return children back to those parents. 𝐓𝐿 have placed inaccurate information on mothers' files in certain situations. They have wronged birth mothers on many occasions. So the system, we know, is failing those mothers especially, and these mothers have absolutely nowhere to go. And I've raised these cases in the Dáil Chamber on many occasions. So at the heart of this is the necessity for women and mothers to be listened to and for their grievances to be addressed. And that's not happening currently. So we need to amend the Child Care Act 1991 to provide 𝐓𝐞𝐽 with the necessary powers to sanction 𝐓𝐿 when it fails to meet these statutory obligations, in my view. And I think one of the major problems with the in-camera rule is that it prevents accountability. It massively reduces the ability for public scrutiny of judicial decision-making. And most people in the general public would be blind to what's actually happening in these courts on a daily basis. Some families go as far as to say that the actual rule is a gagging order in many ways in relation to the experiences that they're having. So, you know, there is a necessity for the Minister to seek to reform this system because it's radically broken, it's extremely damaging to children, and it's phenomenally damaging to parents as well. And I just want to make a brief reference, if I can, to some of the elements that came from that 𝐅𝐸 Investigates programme on 𝐂𝐤𝐬 last week. And I will say, in all of this discussion, it's sometimes forgotten that there are many good workers in 𝐂𝐤𝐬 doing the very best they can for children in extremely difficult circumstances. And I know of many good workers who are getting burnt out on a regular basis. Young people coming out of college with all the zeal and energy that is necessary to tackle this very difficult situation, and because of the pressure that they're being put on to them, they're getting burnt out and they're leaving after a while. And the second point I will say is that one of the reasons why we have this shocking mismanagement of 𝐂𝐤𝐬 is because in many ways the Minister for Children is absent without leave. So when we have a housing crisis in this country, we have the Housing Minister who is regularly questioned and has to be responsible and accountable for what's happening in housing. When there's a crisis in the health service, we have the Minister for Health questioned on a regular basis and being held responsible for what's happening. But when there's a crisis in 𝐂𝐤𝐬, the Minister for Children is invisible. Is absolutely invisible. And the only critique I'd have from that show in 𝐅𝐸 last week is, again, there was no reference really to the Minister for Children in that 𝐅𝐸 Investigates show last week. The strategy of the Minister for Children when these crises arise is to be hidden from sight, inaccessible to questioning and accountability. And one of the reasons is that 𝐂𝐤𝐬 is falling apart at the moment is because we have an absentee Minister for Children. Now, the government's, the Taoiseach's response to last week's 𝐅𝐸 investigation programme on relation to 𝐂𝐤𝐬 was saying that everything is getting better, that the special emergency arrangements were reducing. He boasted that the number of special emergency arrangements are actually being closed down at the moment, as if the government was proactively looking to end the practice. But the truth is actually very different in this, Minister. The truth is 8 SEAs were closed down, not because of extra capacity put in the system, but because they had falsified documents. 5 of these SEAs were closed down because they were referred to the Garda National Vetting Bureau. The government was putting extremely vulnerable children into SEAs that are being referred to the Garda National Vetting Bureau. That is a national scandal, and the government used that as an excuse to say they were actually getting to fixing the problem within the actual system itself. The governments are saying the numbers in SEAs are falling. Again, this statement is disingenuous, and disingenuous is just a fancy term for not telling the truth. Okay? So the reason why the numbers of children in SEAs are falling is because, first of all, the number of unaccompanied minors are falling coming into the system. And those unaccompanied minors who are coming into the system are now being sent to IPAS for age verification, as you will know. So they're being signposted to a different location as such. But the number of Irish children in SEAs is actually increasing in the last year. It's increasing. Now, so the numbers of children in this country that the government is exposing to rape, sexual exploitation, becoming drugs mules in this country is increasing in real time at the moment. That's a national scandal. So, the government is saying that this is going to be sorted out. The waiting list for the regulated residential sector in this country is 50% of all the children in the regulated sector. The waiting list. Now, these are children that are in situations where they can't be put into ordinary families. They can't be put into foster families. So their condition, their situation is very, very serious. They need a residential place. But the waiting list is so long that it actually makes up 50% of all the children in the sector. This problem is going nowhere fast at the moment. And why is this the case? Because there is a lack of investment going into the location, and there's a lack of management. There is a mismanagement problem at the heart of the system. So is there any wonder mothers and families are living in fear when 𝐂𝐤𝐬 come into a situation seeking to take their child off them? And when they go into a legal system that has a complete lack of transparency, a lack of openness, and where their voices are not heard. Is there any wonder that those mothers are living in fear as a result of that? Your opportunity here, Minister, is to leave a legacy where it opens up that process, where voices are heard, where children are protected, where there is scrutiny and where there is accountability. Garb Magat.
Thank you for watching. Please like and share.